Hello, my name is Dr. Aaron Burr, and I am the lecturer of saxophone here at Central Washington University. And today, I wanted to go over the Washington Music Educators Association Saxophone All-State Etudes with you. I wanted to give you some things to look out for, as well as some tips on how to practice them. Now, if you don't want to listen to the explanation of each etude and you just want to jump over to me playing them, there will be time codes in the description for that. So, let's go ahead and get started. For these first two etudes, the expressive and technical etudes in this packet, there's a couple of common considerations that we need to take into account when practicing. These being tempo, articulation, dynamics, and intonation. Regarding the tempo, it's really easy for us to rush on the 16th notes and the technical etude and drag in the expressive etude. In order to combat this, we need to play metronome games, such as putting the metronome on the offbeat or putting the click on the downbeat of each measure to make sure that our internal pulse is staying consistent. Regarding articulation, make sure that we're playing with good supported air that will directly impact our articulation. And two, I like to think about the syllable ni, ni, ni when articulating. This helps me keep my tongue agile while keeping the back of my tongue in the correct placement. Regarding the dynamics, it's really important just to focus on the dynamics in the expressive etude, make sure we're actually doing what's on the page, and considering what notes we want to add vibrato to. So, for example, my general rule for vibrato is the higher and louder, the faster the vibrato is, and the lower or softer, the slower the vibrato is. Remember, vibrato is a musical tool to add intensity. Regarding the dynamics in the technical etude, the last four measures can be a little confusing. Some people might interpret this as starting at forte plus or fortissimo and having a gradual decrescendo throughout until we finally jump back up to forte in the last measure. However, what is more likely is that we're supposed to start at a louder dynamic, forte, forte plus, decrescendo throughout the measure, and then jump back up to the written dynamic and decrescendo once more. Additionally, don't forget to take the repeat. Regarding intonation, as we get higher in the saxophone register, we're likely to get sharp because we're starting to bite. So remember to keep a good amount of space in between your back molars while playing saxophone. Additionally, the expressive etude starts on our middle D, which is an incredibly sharp note. So remember to cover that note with your low beat key. So, without further ado, let's go and play. ensemble excerpt for alto saxophone this year is Shepherd's Hay by Percy Grainger. This is another really common excerpt found for alto saxophone for band auditions, and it tackles a lot of the same aspects of playing as Molly on the Shore does. There is really crisp and light articulation and clarity of technique, as well as making sure that we do not compress triplets. So implement a lot of the same practice techniques that we talked about over in Molly on the Shore here. Now there's a few articulation exercises that I wanted to show you that can help out with this excerpt. The first is a really simple 5-note scale articulation exercise, starting on C, and then we go around the circle of fifths. It'll start like so. Then going to G, going around the circle of fifths. Every 2 that we do, we're going to bump up the metronome by 5 or 10, depending on where you are at as a player. The next exercise that I wanted to show you is what's called a stop tonguing exercise. So the thing is we move our fingers in the time that our tongue is on the reed. So this exercise kind of really slows down that process. So we're going to also start at 80, and what we're going to do is for every quarter note, we're going to articulate on one quarter note, and then we're going to move our fingers on the other quarter note. And we're going to go G chromatically up to B and back down. It'll look like so. Over time, we'll speed this exercise up, and that will really help the coordination between our articulation and our fingers. Eventually, it'll sound like so. Throughout this exercise, it's really important to make sure that we're keeping our air consistent and we are using our tongue to stop the vibration of the reed while keeping the air pressure. The soprano excerpt this year is Molly on the Shore by Percy Grainger. This excerpt is used quite often in band auditions from high school all the way up to military band. You'll see it both on soprano and alto saxophone. With this excerpt, there are quite a few things that we need to watch out for. With the soprano in particular, we need to be watching out for our response, especially in the low register, and our intonation throughout. So long tones and overtones are going to be your best friend. Another thing to consider with this excerpt is the challenging nature of the articulation. It is staccato throughout, and that can tire out our tongue really quickly. So we need to make sure that we're starting at the slow end of the spectrum and very incrementally increasing the metronome. And that paired with previously discussed articulation exercises will be incredibly important and will set you up for success for this excerpt. There's a few more technical considerations that we need to address when it comes to Molly on the Shore. The first one is making sure that we're not compressing the triplets found throughout this excerpt, and the second is keeping our internal pulse consistent. Regarding the triplets, it's really easy to compress these into 2 16th notes and an 8th note. So I would just make sure that throughout your practicing journey that you're checking in with that as you speed up the metronome. Listening back and recording yourself will be an excellent tool here. Regarding keeping your internal pulse the same, I often tell my students that we need to play more metronome games. Now, what does this mean? This means that we put the metronome on the offbeat, or try to make sure that the metronome pulse is set to different subdivisions. For example, let's say my goal tempo for Molly on the Shore is 108. So I'm going to set the metronome, started at 108. This is going to be my half note pulse. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the metronome down to 54. This is going to make the pulse the downbeat of every measure, or the whole note pulse. Next, I'm going to bring the metronome down to 27. This is going to be a pulse for every 2 measures. And now for fun, let's go ahead and put this metronome pulse down to, if I could, 13.5, but I can't, so we're just going to put down to 13, which is going to make it have a click every 4 measures. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and play it. The excerpt this year for baritone saxophone is the Concerto in E flat for horn, K447, movement 3 from Mozart. It's a small excerpt in the concerto, and the biggest piece of advice that I have for this is to go back to the source. Find a player that you like and listen to them perform the piece. Then try and emulate those things. Some general saxophone issues are the dynamics, intonation, and articulation. Regarding intonation, we need to make sure that the pitch does not rise too much in the middle D to middle E area. This part of the horn is egregious, even compared to alto saxophone. It's incredibly sharp, and we need to work really hard to keep the pitch down here. For dynamics, there's not really any markings. What you should do here is go back to your reference recording, see where in the concerto this excerpt is happening and what the soloist is doing there. That's a good place to start. It is a concerto, so generally we want to be stronger. We want to be heard over the entire ensemble, so keep that in mind. Additionally, lean into the half-step relationship, like so at the beginning. Bring those out to help make it feel a little bit more musical. Regarding the articulation, review the previous material that we discussed. The repeated articulations need to be driving towards something, secret crescendo, which will also help you stabilize your articulation because it's forcing you to have a better airstream to do this. Additionally, it's a little bit bigger of a reed, so you have to work harder. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen or watch the video here. Hopefully you found some things that are helpful for you, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section or send me an email at aaron.burr2@cwu.edu. That's aaron.burr2@cwu.edu. Thanks so much, and good luck on your auditions.